This is one good and tough mother of a knife. That's right, guys, you've seen it right. This is another FOBOS Knives review. This is the Alaris in CPM 3V. Coming in at around $321. It's definitely not cheap, but is the quality of this American-made knife worth your hard-earned cash? Let's check it out. If you happen to see my previous review on a FOBOS knife, which was the Calcula, if you haven't, I'll put the link in the description. That knife was more geared towards a self-defense knife, while also being a good all-around utilitarian knife. This particular Alaris knife, I think, is more geared towards a survival and a camping setting, which is something actually I was looking for out of a FOBOS knife. Now, if you see the background of the images here, it's actually cutting through some raw meat here. It's doing some food processing, which a good camping knife is supposed to do. And I hate using this pun, but it's so appropriate. This knife is like a hot knife cutting through butter. It just slices extremely well for food prepping. This fits the bill in terms of a camping knife to food prep with it. Just a great slicing knife, which you're going to see with all the cutting I do in this video, and there's going to be a lot of it. It is an incredibly good cutting and slicing knife, while also maintaining itself as being a very tough and high durability knife. Now, these are clips from a open box video I did of this Alaris knife with a couple of other FOBOS knives. What I like about the presentation of this box, it is just a box with some styrofoam, has also some rust-proof liner and all that, but it's not an over-embellished box. It's not, in other words, you're not paying extra for the presentation that you get out of the box. The Kydex sheath, which is a very high quality Kydex sheath, the knife fits very firmly in there. It doesn't come out, it clicks into place. It's just done very well, as well as his leather sheaths are also incredibly well done. You notice how nice and firmly the knife actually fits into its styrofoam. You have a couple of things that are included. You have a blade protector from Wicked Wax, is a company that Eric Hansen, the owner and designer of all these knives, coupled with FOBOS knives. It's an organic ingredient that is completely safe on steel and leather and all that, and it'll protect your knife. You also have a multitude of stickers with their really cool looking logo included in the box. Takes a lot of pride in pretty much his product, and you can see it in terms of what he includes in the box. Also, you have the warranty card. The warranty card, you know, like with this American knife, with many American knives, for operators by operators, this warranties the knife for life. Given that you don't do anything stupid with the knife, he will warranty the knife if something goes wrong with it while you're actually using it. So paying for the knife and using it, you don't have to worry, because it does have a great lifetime warranty. Now, the literature and the information that this knife comes with, or all FOBOS knives comes with, is pretty much remarkable. I have never seen this level of detail in the manual. It's basically like a complete knife manual. It tells you the angle bevels. It tells you so much information, intricate details on the knife and how the knife was made, how the knife should be sharpened. It's just a very appreciated amount of information that he gives you on a knife that I haven't really seen any other knife manufacturer do. Now, besides this knife being extremely attractive to me, the aesthetics of this knife is just beautiful. Now, we could talk about specs on paper as much as we want, and the specs are great. Micarta, black micarta handle, black, red liners. It's got a sizable handle length of around 5.5 inches. The egos of this knife, you just have to really hold it in your hand to understand how incredibly comfortable this knife is in the hand. Very well thought out jimping on the handle, delicately placed curvature on the handle that just, your hand just kind of really melts right into the handle. And regardless of how you're holding this thing and how you're handling it, it really just, no slippage, no hot spots. It just fits incredibly comfortable and pleasing in the hand. Now, what really sets this knife apart from other FOBOS knives and other knives in their category is the fact of how the width of the blade and how the blade actually drops down from the finger so far, so that your fingers are never in the way of whenever you're cutting with it. So that would make it awesome for food prep, for food cutting, food prep, and also when you're slicing into wood, because your fingers are never in the way of the slices, and that makes it for a great wood processing and slicing knife. While I wouldn't classify this knife as strictly a combat knife or a self-defense knife, it's silly to think that you can't use this knife as a self-defense knife. Completely solid construction, and especially that absolutely devastating extended pommel that is just absolutely crushing, and you can use that knife for a non-lethal attack for self-defense. What is beginning to become a trademark on pretty much all of Phobos, all of Eric's knives, is this extended pommel. And you can see I am kind of, hitting it into center blocks here, and they cracked, right at first strike here. Now, understand, I'm not trying to abuse the knife in any way, but I'm just trying to show you how solid the construction is of this knife and how devastating that pommel attack can be, and how useful it could be if you need to kind of just crush things and you need to, kind of crush wood or crush rock in front of you. It's extremely effective, and you can see, other than just some scratches, there's no chips, it didn't bend, there's no deformations of the handle, nothing loosened up on the handle, the steel, it's absolutely perfectly fine. This is just an extremely solid piece of steel, more solid than the rock that I was hitting. So just to give you a couple quick specs on the knife: an absolutely beautiful contoured spine of the knife that is great for slicing and also great for toughness at 5.15 millimeters of thickness on that spine, with a beautiful reinforced tip that makes it a very powerful knife. The overall length of this knife is about 10.5 inches. The blade length is around a really nice 5 inches. The blade thickness is 0.20. The blade material is a very durable CPM 3V that I was not afraid to push, because that is the nature of the steel. You can push it without it breaking on you. The blade style is drop point. The blade grind is a very acceptable and very appreciated convex edge, which I'm a big fan of. The finish is black, the edge type is plain. The handle length is again 5.5 inches, micarta. It's black. For those that are familiar with using it, you would appreciate the fact that on the handle it has a bow drill, and it also sits on steel, so it makes it for a very efficient use. With the beautiful red liners, which I'm a big fan of. The weight is about 10.9 ounces, very well balanced in the hand. Right hand, left hand carry. The sheath is a Codex, very well made sheath. It's a fixed blade, obviously. The designer is Eric Hansen, like all the knives in Phobos, and the country of origin is good old US of A. And the classification of this knife is for camping, hiking, and tactical. Now, I not only banged this knife around a little bit to show its toughness, I also did a lot of cutting with it. This is a steel reinforced industrial strength sandblast hose, and you can see the steel coming off the surface as I'm cutting it. So one thing I have to say about this knife: this is probably one of the best cutting knives or slicing knives, especially of this size, that I have ever tested on the channel. And even compared to other knives, even my previous Phobos knives, this is just an incredibly good cutting knife. The way it actually did a push cut through this sandblast hole and also sliced it beforehand, probably the quickest I've ever went through this sandblast hose out of any knife I've tested on it so far. So it did an amazing job. And you can see with the close-ups there, with that steel reinforced and the thickness of that rubber, this is not easy material to cut. And I try to use the same materials on every knife to just show you what knife excels at what, and what knife works better than others, to show you how good the cutting performance is when comparing the knives together and seeing, multiple reviews. But you can see there's no damage to the edge, cutting into the steel, which had affected other knives in the past. So I continued the slicing, the cutting ability of the knife, showing the cutting ability of the knife, just cutting whatever I could get my hands on. This is just some various types of ropes, and it just really went through it with no effort whatsoever. The push cuts, I mean, again, it performed so well compared to all the knives I've tested with these same tests. This is industrial strength ratchet strap. Again, if you don't have a sharp edge, if you don't have a comfortable grip on the handle, and if you don't have a good cutting profile on the edge, it's going to have some trouble getting through this type of material. This is 4 in a row that I'm cutting through, and it really just kind of went through with no effort whatsoever. And it just shows me the quality of the edge and this particular knife compared to other knives I've tested. This is some push cuts, some drag cuts with the point to test the point, and it did it with absolutely no problem. Polyurethane rope, obviously camping rope, no issue whatsoever. Then I went through some regular rope there. Again, more cutting performance. It kept the edge retention. It kept its edge retention throughout the entire demonstration. This is some leather belt. Again, no problem whatsoever there. Still, the edge retention is very strong. Push cuts on some really tough electrical cable that's been sitting out in the cold for a little while, and it went through that with all the copper inlays. And here I'm just kind of trying to test or demonstrate the point. I'm trying to put a little stress on the point to show you how powerful that reinforced point on these FOBOS knives are. I'm actually even hammering it into the wood there from the pommel, and I'm really trying to dig that thing in there and getting the point in there and kind of wiggling it around. Again, this is not abusing it, demonstrating the strength of the point of this knife. This is not something you probably would do on your own, but maybe you want to make a hole to kind of pass some rope through for camping. And if need be in a pinch, you can do it because it is a very powerful knife. You can get some holes in there and not have to worry about the knife damaging on you. And you can see there was no damage to the point, and you can see also how deep I went in and made like a square hole into the wood that can come in useful at some point. Now I'm stabbing my normal stabbing actions with the knife into the cardboard. Now what am I doing here? I'm showing you the comfort of the knife in the hand. If there's any slippage, if there's any hot spots, if there's any pain on the impact from hitting the knife into the stump, the penetration, showing you the penetration, which is excellent. And it just all passed with flying colors. I mean, no pain, no nothing. And the penetration is excellent. It did a really good job. And the point throughout all these tests really held up beautifully with absolutely no deformations or chips of any kind. Okay, batoning. Now, batoning is not something that is recommended on a knife or a person who wants to keep their knife and have the longevity of the knife be high, because eventually batoning the knife with the knife, especially of this size, day in and day out, will eventually start developing friction and cracks that are going to make its way to the edge or on some points of the knife that are weak on the weak parts. But for demonstration purposes, we're trying to put some pressure on the edge to see how much you can take and the quality of the heat tempering and all that. Here you can see I kind of went right into a knot, and the knife had a little bit of problem getting through it. Well, actually, I had a problem getting through it. I could have probably kind of worked on it for a little while to get through it, but I didn't want to. I kind of probably switched it onto the other side and got through it the other way. But you can see the strength of this knot here. And again, this is a good testament to the strength of the edge and the strength of the heat tempering to show that you didn't get any damage by going into a very powerful knot like this. And on the other side, it kind of just went through and got through that knot with no issue. No issue and no damage. You can really see with the surface scratches of this knife, I really ran this thing through the mill. It did a great job. Everything just held up really well. Other than some surface scratches, the knife really held its own on everything I did with it. Finishing off this review of this knife, doing some more slicing with the knife. Again, what I find with a lot of these FOBOS knives is the fact that they do not quit. They keep on going. They still want to cut more and more. Every time I pick this knife up and try cutting, that's a reverse grip on the cut there. Also very comfortable. It just keeps on cutting, and the edge retention really, really holds up. I've been very impressed thus far with the edge retention, the heat tempering, and the steel choice, and how they treat the steel in the formation of these knives. They handle themselves extremely well. You can see it's still cutting and it's still going. The knife did extremely well. Big fan of it. Okay, end result. So paper slicing after all the cutting. You can see it's still paper cutting sharp. Of course it lost something, but not much. And if you see the close-ups with the naked eye, you really don't see any damage to the edge whatsoever. But to be honest, I did go with a magnifying glass and saw some really micro abrasions on the edge, which I would not even consider damage. That's just something that in maintenance of the knife, to strop it and to maybe hone it, all those things come completely out, but I didn't find any damage on the edge whatsoever. All right, this is the FOBOS Alaris, designed by Eric Hansen. It's definitely well suited for food prep, survival, camping, and pretty much everything in between. Generously sized handle and a Clad Micarta or G10 available. It's comfortable in pretty much a variety of positions. It's incredibly ergonomic for both heavy and light duty tasks as far as I'm concerned, with pretty much no hand fatigue. And it brings this whole package together with a durable, reliable Kydex sheath for a reliable and easy carry. I personally think the Alaris looks and performs as good as any of the great bushcrafting, survival, and camping knives on the market, or none. I think it'll definitely win a spot on your next trip to the woods. It's definitely one of the ultimate camp knives that's available today. So to answer the beginning question of this video, at $321, is this knife worth your hard-earned cash? Given the fact that it does have a lifetime warranty, this knife is made to be used, and it's made to be used well. And as you can see, it is screaming great quality. American made, American warranty, and it's done really well. Go out and get one for yourself. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I appreciate it, and please consider watching one of these videos coming up next. Ciao.